All right, joining us today we have Blockhead and Hayward here, the developers and owners of Torpars. Since you guys are continue on taking on the project, I am actually curious to know, I'm sure everyone else is too, why did you guys feel it was important to go ahead and continue on the Torpars project?
Well, let me be the first to answer that one before Hayward does, because I was the first one James approached. Originally, I was one of the people working as I guess our job description was database administrator. Um, we were the people who were going in, looking at logs that were posted on the ranked section, and confirming that they were valid and not hacked anyway. When he said, he was running out of time of his day to run the project, I stepped in mainly because I find Torparse is such an invaluable website for Star Wars endgame raiders. I mean, the ability to parse your logs, the ability to look at uh, how you're doing, your stats, where you can improve, and at the end of the day, putting it out there for the world saying, beat this kind of thing. It's a really good idea for any kind of MMO, and doubly so for Star Wars, because there's no other place that does that.
Yeah, it keeps
Yeah, I
the
completely
players
agree.
ready, or it keeps the players into it, I think.
For sure. I know, Block's my raid leader on the side too. We were both in the same guild, Tranquility. And before I'd even heard about Tor parse, we had been using other parsers for quite some time. And we always were kind of thinking that these are really nice to be able to see how you stack up against everybody, see how you can improve. And we were thinking to ourselves the whole time, how can we make this better? When Block mentioned that James, the original creator of Torpars, was looking for new owners, I jumped at the opportunity because was a server administrator for a lot of fan sites, in both in Star Wars and other games, and I had a server available. So I was like, yeah, I would love to help with the project.
Well, let me be the first person to say thank you for keeping it going, because I think the fans in general were a little upset when we heard that it might be going away. We had no idea how we were going to flaunt our EPs anymore.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad you guys all love it, and hope we're here to make it the best we can, and to give back.
Nice,
Oh
nice.
yeah, I mean we've always been big fans of it in our guild as well. We've always used it to prove that our DPS are doing well, and especially back in the beginning when Star Wars first started. I mean the only real DPS meter you had was in Eternity Vault, and trying to get those when you had those individual bosses to down. Whoever downed them first, you knew was the best DPS. So
Me.
having tools like this definitely does.
Yeah, you just say Rondo. It's okay.
Yeah, it's great that we always had people that were talking the talk, but now we have the parsers to to show that you actually can walk the walk.
Right, right. How about did anything interesting happen on the takeover?
A couple things. I mean, I'll let Block start with this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely interesting. We came into it, Hayward and I, knowing that there'd be bumps in the road, and the biggest thing I guess that happened was we had it all planned out. We're like, okay, we're gonna get down this week and do it, and then everybody's personal life got in the way right away. Like I had a big work conference that just like my other teammates for my real life job they were supposed to go to, and then they're like, "We're sick, so now you need to go." And then after that conference, I already planned my vacation out, so I was out of town for another week. And then James had this big work thing that he had done, and then Hayward, you were doing your
And I went out of
school
town too
frosh thing,
at
I think it
school.
was. And
Yeah,
it's
a
just like
bunch of stuff.
everything went on hiatus for close to 3 weeks before we're like, we really need to just sit down and get this thing done.
Yeah, I felt like you guys disappeared for a while. Not anything like, but we were like, oh wow, it's got this new thing, and then we're like, wait, is it really going to happen? Did he really find people? Tell us he found someone, because it was like what
Yeah,
happened? I think a lot of people
we were
felt
debating.
that way.
Yeah, we were debating about putting up some sort of announcement saying, "Hey, it's okay, guys. We got this. It'll be ready in due time." But we ended up,
You
just
should have,
waiting till it was
because
all ready
Rondo
to
almost
before we made it.
almost wet himself.
How dare you, Talons?
But I mean, yeah, it was touch and go for a little while. Like especially when I went on vacation. Like I went camping for 4 days, And so like I had no internet access at all, nothing. Like my cell phone didn't even work out there in the bush, and so I had zero connectivity. And I kept thinking to myself every day, what is the public thinking right now? But
Right.
the site was booked. The site was booked. Deposits were made. There's no way I couldn't do this. And besides, my girlfriend would have killed me had I not gone. So I had to do it.
I
But
think the
in the end, I think everything worked out.
Yeah, I think the worst part too for me, like my heart sank when I realized just how big these combat logs were. The original server we were planning on using didn't have as much free space as that we actually needed. Right now, I think we have like 4 terabytes of just raw combat log files that are taking up server space, and
And
I
that's
just
just
was not
text.
prepared originally for that. Yeah, exactly, and that's compressed too, so we were a little. I guess I was a little unprepared for the scope of exactly how much space this was going to take up.
Right. Like, did you hear that, BioWare? If you ever needed proof that you had that many subscribers, it's in their logs.
Oh, it's funny. Like if you look on the forums, browsing the theory crafting, posts, the other, posts about stuff, BioWare's actually mentioned that they've occasionally checked Torparse as a reference for balance and other stats.
Oh yeah, I
It's
mean
a lot
definitely.
of pressure there.
Idea when you can check for certain fights and then get an idea that snipers are doing the top DPS pretty much across server across the board. You get an idea that they might be a bit overpowered compared to other DPS. So yeah, I'm definitely see them as being handy for them to have that info as well.
Because as much as they like to say that they have metrics available to them, I found by comparing the metrics they attempt to put forward versus the metrics we have on Torparse, you find there's a vast difference there. And so it's like sometimes I just have to question where they're getting their numbers from. If we have, like Hayward mentioned, 4 terabytes of information, just easily disposable for people to look at, like they can't even compare sometimes.
You should just block their IP and say, pay us. No, I'm just kidding. But
Permaband. Dang.
So I'm sure everyone else would like to know. Is there any ETA on the next big update for Torparse? I mean, we've seen on Reddit some of the features you guys were planning on implementing, with the raid timers and the notification for different debuffs, which all sound like great updates. Is there any time frame yet on that, or is that still in the works?
You see, and that's again directed at me. I'm the client side guy. And this is going to sound so Bioware right now when I say my soft ETA is in 1 week. I set out with this big goal and I started programming this big goal. And then as I was going, I realized I needed to change basically the entire engine of the client. And James is a great guy, and he still, you know, keeps touch with us, kind of thing. And all props to him for starting this. But at the end of the day, James was an amateur programmer, and this was like his first project. This was his first time at the language, and so he did a great job. But like programming is what I do for a living. And when I started working with this and I'm adding these features in, it started off great and all, and then it just ballooned. And I'm looking at like just CPU usage alone. And I don't know if you guys look at that when you run your Torparse, but sometimes the CPU usage can clock upwards of 80% for such a little program.
mm-hmm.
When I added on my features, I was stalling my computer. And I have a pretty powerful rig.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one thing you might want to have. You might want to mention, like I guess like how you made the group upload feature. How it was kind of like a cobbled on solo upload that got enhanced a bit, because everyone wants a group upload feature. That's one of the main features of these parsers these days is you want to be able to join a raid group and upload group logs. But to do that, like the original Torparse didn't have that feature. It was all solo logs. So James kind of cobbled together something. Now we have to have block and improve it now.
Yeah, and so like when I originally made that post, I'm like, okay, I'm almost done, guys. I tested all the individual components; they were all working great. I put it together, and it just blew straight to hell. And so I'm rewriting the core engine as I'm going, and things are looking much better. So I'm pretty confident, and this is where my style comes in, and I refuse to release something that's not perfect. And so that's why I say my soft target is a week. Hayward, this is probably the first you're hearing about it, but tomorrow when we run, I'm probably going to give my group my beta test client, and if all goes well, then within a week, I'm sure everybody will get to use TorParse. I'm going to call it version 2.0, and it's finally going to be out of beta.
Yay!
Oh, that sounds
Ooh, you
awesome.
heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it here first. And the thing is, are we? I don't know if this is a question you can answer because it's not out of beta or anything yet. But are we keeping the way that you had the groups listed before? Because I mean, let's be honest. You can go out and you can use any parse that you want. I mean, whatever you think is the best for you. But one thing I say that TorParse really brought to the table was this ability to have your friends, so you didn't have to like go every time and figure it out. Or even I think a couple people are talking about parsec now, but the thing with parsec is you have to set up a group in order to do it, and then you have to show people to get on. At least with yours, you could just join a group, and I always thought that was a really awesome feature. Is that something you're going to be keeping?
Oh, for sure. And it's great for pickup groups, right? Because as long as you know one person in the group, you can always get into the group that way.
Yeah.
I do plan on creating, not for this release, but for the next release, I plan on creating a feature where it'll be like a friends list, but it'll be a group list. And so instead of joining your friends group, you'll just join the group. If you're the first one there, hey, but then other people can just join that group as opposed to joining a friend.
Oh, I like that.
This is great because if you have like a guild and it has a set raid group each week, say you run on Tuesdays, Wednesdays or so, you can just keep joining that same group, and you can even like track, I guess, your progression over the course of time with that same group of guild or whatever group.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, that does sound like an awesome feature.
I mean, I think.
But like I said,
I'm
that's
sorry.
down the road.
Yeah, of course. You heard that here first. It's down the road. We can give you directions, but you know what?
Soon to it.
My directions
way.
are like it's next to the big tree, and then you take a left. So I don't know if you're going to get anything more here today from us.
So you're saying you're adding the official BioWare soon to that as well, or?
Soon TM, oh, then I have to pay them every time I say that.
It's true.
That is true. One thing I wanted to touch on that you guys mentioned earlier was about the actual fake logs, and how do you actually plan on handling those, or do you plan on, because some people can go and edit after the fact. We were even looking at some of the logs on BioWare's forums that people posted, and one of the sorcerers had an ability that he somehow got off during the middle of a cache, which is somehow impossible. So, I mean, how do you guys address maybe someone listing themselves as the top DPS, faking their logs? I mean, do you guys let the community report those, and then do you remove those, or how do you guys plan on those
we have there's a report feature on the site, and anybody can either email us or report a log they think is bogus. We have a few people right now on our team that pretty much their entire job is just go through logs and look for ones that are like error logs or faked ones, and to remove them from the site. Some people in our guild, like there's one that comes to mind is Gobian. He's a great guy. He's been helping us remove logs. Another thing too, this kind of ties in with the problems with the new operations bosses we've been seeing. For example, we have one fight operator where after the first trash pull, that's part of the boss fight, you exit combat and re-enter combat. And because of that, we have all these logs that are showing up on the site that are just that first trash pull and with insane DPS numbers. So that's something we have to look for. We have to merge logs together and delete ones that they're faked.
Okay, so I mean, I think
it's a process. We need.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like that brings up a good point. I think that like even on some of like the dummy logs, I think that the community sort of standard that has been set is like a 5-minute log. I think a lot of people can agree with that. That a lot of to show that you're good on your rotation, it's like a 5-minute log, right? I think that's pretty much the standard at the moment.
I've seen that for sure.
Yeah, so then sometimes you see like one of those dummy logs that you can tell they did it for about maybe 3 minutes, which you know what, that's still pretty standard, but you know, community standard says that that's not really a log. Are you guys going to maybe come up with rules and set standards for your logs? Not that the way you've been doing it is wrong up until now. I'm just, you know, question.
So yeah, I'll take that one. With the dummy logs, for example, again, that's why we have those admins come in and they do their best to stay on top of removing the less than 5 minute logs or logs that people view as incorrect, and then the admins go in and see, yeah, they're incorrect. When it comes to all the other operations and then the flashpoints that we have as well, um, the biggest problem that we have is with the way the combat logs are written themselves, and this is a big rant I've had many, many times, and Hayward can attest to. BioWare did us a great favor and a great disservice when they gave us combat logging. It's great because people like us can create these things and create all these boards, and everybody can measure their EPs, and it's great and all, but at the same time, I feel like it's 3/4 there. And this whole combat log start, combat log stop, and the issues we've been having with Palace, and the fight IDs not matching up correctly, these are all things that are on BioWare's end.
Yeah.
And hey, if they're listening tonight, here's me again trying to reach out, and hopefully you'll get back to me now. We need to figure out this from your end, BioWare, because that's not something I can change. That's something you have to change. It's just a couple lines of code in your combat log. Please, please, please. That'll make a world of difference for us.
Yeah, we're not.
I guess
They're
one
not
example to
asking
illustrate
for
Block's
bounty
thing.
hunter heat reduction or anything, you know.
A simple like
enter.
Yeah, a simple like start boss fight and end boss fight would be more than sufficient, as opposed to just enter combat, exit combat. If you're engaging a big boss like Corruptor Zero, and maybe you exit combat during that fight, but you're still engaged in that instance. It would be so nice if they just added that extra line in there.
Yeah, and then for you
Another
guys,
problem
you'd
is
be able to
saying
put it up there, huh? Like if it said boss instead of combat, you're saying that would help you out a lot.
Yeah,
that's
so let's. I'll give you a quick peek into how things are done, so you can see where we're coming from. When a fight is started, you enter combat, right? You see your yellow marker flashes to red, and your character engages combat. That's when you get a line that says combat entered, and that's all it says. It doesn't say what you engaged. It says nothing. It just combat entered. Now, let's say, for example, you are a healer, and you never take damage at all in that fight. All you do is heal somebody. When you exit combat, I sadly have no way of knowing what fight you were in, because all I see is you healing somebody. If you don't take damage, I can't see the character or the enemy that did damage to you, so I can't determine the fight.
Oh, okay.
So
to make matters worse, sorry, I'm cutting you in there. To make matters worse, the new op, each boss is given a unique identifier. Usually, like for in the past, all operations bosses and all across all different difficulty modes have a little ID that says, okay, this is a story mode 8-man boss. In the new ops, specifically Dread Palace, BioWare for some reason has decided to give the same ID across all modes and all difficulties. So if we want to see if you're doing 16-man story mode versus, say, 8-man hard mode, there's really no way for us to tell based on that ID again, which was what we were using in the past as the identifier. Now, some of the newer parsers have been starting to do new checks to get around that, like looking for unique hard mode abilities or looking for like the damage output. But that makes it much more complicated than it needs to be. If BioWare had just given those unique IDs again, you wouldn't have that problem at all.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can see how that could be a big pain.
And the other thing that they're doing that I'm hesitant to do is when they're creating all these complex methods of determining what fight, they're creating a couple of assumptions that can be proven false in certain circumstances, or they're making assumptions that aren't necessarily true with later tiers of gear. Like, they would say, well, damage output is maximized at this value for a nightmare mode fight and this value for a hard mode fight. Well, that's great and all, but what happens when gear goes up and tanks take less damage? Then you have to readjust those numbers every time a new tier of gear comes out, or even worse, you're going to have some people in one tier and another people in another tier of gear. All those kind of calculations, to me, is a bad thing, because one of the foundations that James had with Torparse, and one of the foundations that we would like to continue, is 100% accuracy. We always want to give you 100% correct information, and if we have to start making assumptions, or we have to start extrapolating or interpolating data, then we could give you the wrong information, and then that's just a slippery slope downwards from there.
I mean, and then you can lose credibility.
I was wondering, have James or you guys have any type of communications with BioWare, either their maybe Eric, their community manager, or anyone in that regard, or?
James only ever got one email from Eric, if I believe, and that was shortly after Torparse first went live, way back almost a year ago now, I guess. And Eric, all I believe the email said was, good job. Look forward to seeing what Torparse can do. Ever since then, James emailed them a couple of times about these fight IDs and especially the combat log start, combat log stop kind of thing. I've emailed BioWare 3 or 4 times myself. I've PM'd them a couple of times on my forum handle. I've never gotten anything back.
Well, we had an idea in order to get a hold of Eric. We were just going to start calling customer service until Eric called us back. So when we get him on our podcast, you guys can be our special guest hosts. How about that?
That sounds like a fantastic idea.
All right. I think Big still had some more questions for you too. That wasn't like the ending.
Well, I was just wondering what are your 2 or 3 big features that are yet to come out that you guys are most excited about?
Well, from my end, one thing that I'm really looking forward to is the enraged timers. Because this is kind of like each group can set their kind of timers for things. I know I'm putting in a hard timer, this is when the boss hard enrages, but that's just one number. I'm leaving it open for other people, other groups, to say, okay, we need to have, say, I don't know, Hayrat down by 1 minute 30. If we don't, then we're not likely to finish the rest of the fight, or we need to be through phase 1 of Corruptor 0, or whatever have you, at certain points. I think that's going to be really good for progression raiders. I know my group, personally, since I'm the leader of my group, I would love to be just looking at that timer and it flashing saying, you got 5 seconds left to finish this. And then other people could say, okay, abilities are coming at this point if that's if that's their deal, if that's how they like to run things.
No, that sounds amazing.
No, actually, yeah, it does. I mean, especially, people are trying to rush and get the DPS out and maybe not paying attention when, maybe that they had an extra minute or two to, actually take their time and they didn't need to rush. So, yeah, something like that sounds like would be an awesome addition.
What about something for I don't know if you guys had anything planned or if that's kind of like what you were talking about too, but with Corruptor 0, even where he, every 10 seconds we get a mine, is there something where you can set it to call out every
That's a feature that can be built into my enraged timer code down the road. I might open up the idea for let's call it a Deadly Boss Mods from WoW, if anybody knows what Deadly Boss Mods was. But at the same time, I don't want to take that too far, because I played WoW before and after Deadly Boss Mods, and it came to a point where raiding for me got so dumb because all I was doing was waiting for that giant flashing thing on my screen to make my decisions for me. So I'll include some of that, but I definitely don't want to get it to the point where Torparse does all the thinking for you.
And as well, it shouldn't. The good groups should be able to handle it really. And the groups that can't handle it should be able to learn, I think. And I know that sounds maybe a little elitist, but sometimes you have to play the video game. Don't let the video game play itself for you, right?
Play you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
Torparse is designed as a tool. It's not designed as a crutch or somebody that's going to piggyback you through this.
No, and I think that is a really good point.
And just speaking onto that, like, one thing I love about it as a tool is while the DPS use it to, measure their EPs and be like, yeah, I'm the best, I'm not a DPS. I'm a tank. That's what I do. And one thing that I really loved about it when it first came out, and I'm trying to keep going, is just the amount of information a tank and a healer can also gain from Torparse. Like, I can look at it from my point of view and I can see, okay, this is where I'm taking all my damage. This is, the damage profile coming in, so I can min-max my character based on the damage profiles. I can see, well, this is what I died to, so now I don't have to die to that again if I just do this, or if I pop my cooldown now. And it's, you don't really see that in other things, because we just have that kind of log information both at your fingertips and then even in more detail later on.
Yeah, based on what Block said, judging, I did an AMA, and some of the feedback was saying that Torparse gives you all this data overload almost. We have one of the most complete results from any parser. The problem that some people had was that the way it's presented, they want some more options. So I guess one thing that I want to see down the line in Torparse's features is more and more customization options in how the data is presented and displayed. Like right now we have multiple overlays that you can pop out and put on your screen. I'd actually even like just to have a window where, like, I use 2 monitors, so I would love to have a second window where I just have all my stats all in one window. Kind of like, I don't know, another parser comes to mind, but just the idea of just having the option to choose and have other colors.
No, I think that even
those things are coming.
Yeah, no, and I think that even when it gets done, I have noticed that with your parse, it is the most accurate when it comes to getting the proper numbers out there. I've noticed that some other ones are either like above or below, and then a couple of the parses that I find to be the most accurate are very similar, and then there's some that are like above and below. And I just noticed that you guys have very accurate feedback.
And like, I can't even begin to say the number of times when we would raid, say on Wednesday, and we would wipe all night, and then I'd go over everyone's logs over the next couple of days. We'd come back on Monday. I'm like, okay, guys, these are the 3 things we need to change based on what I saw. And within half an hour, boom, boss is dead, and it's like, let's move on. And it's just, that's what those logs give us. That's what the information we have.
Yeah.
Reminds me of the one idea you had, Block, with the death line, or like what killed you, pretty much going back and just having it automatically display the last few lines, saying, oh, you died from this because you did this.
Oh yeah, I didn't tell anybody about that yet, now did I? That's another feature coming out. See, this is why you're here, to remind me of these things.
Yep.
In Star Wars right now, right when you die, you just get a line on your screen saying you died from this attack and took this much damage. That's great, but what about what led up to that? Like, what were you doing in the last 5 seconds leading up to your death? And how can you prevent it based on that information? So what the new update is going to do is it's going to have a brief snippet. It's going to take the last 5 seconds of your log and parse it for you right there, right on the spot. And so it'll say, this is what you were doing in the last 5 seconds. So basically, from that alone, you should be able to learn how not to die again.
That's great for
and
healers.
So Block can tell me, Hayward, how'd you die this time? And then I'll be like, oh, right there.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, even for a healer, yeah, we got a marauder that just loves to find himself dead. But what I'm saying is, like, for a healer, if the healers are usually the ones asking the most, like, okay, what killed you? And you're like, what was the hugest hit ever? It hit me for like 25k. Well, you have 40k life, and you were topped off. So what really happened?
Yep. Unlike the number of times, Hayward, you would die like 6 seconds into combat, and you kept saying, no, I didn't steal aggro. And then look, last 5 seconds, boss is hitting you with his basic attack.
Did you forget to guard me again? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess those are the a few of the main updates for the client side. When turning to server side, that's more my forte, kind of how it's presented on the website itself. Right now, we're kind of in the process of adding a few additional team members, mostly for the server side of things to help code.
And that's actually one of our last questions we have written down, is what type of help or development are you guys actually looking for? Because we noticed you guys had a Reddit post, and that's kind of how we got a hold of you. But is there anything, and you were already going into it, but what are you guys looking for?
Well, I guess the main thing here, we need someone who's very familiar with some of the new web standards. We're looking for things like HTML5, PHP5, CSS3, the big three right there.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have to know database work. Outside of that, those are the core, like
SQL?
You must have that experience. Yeah, my SQL for sure. Outside of that, we're looking if you know anything about maybe jQuery, JavaScript, any of those additional things, that's just a plus. We're trying to make our website, the best it can be and more modern. I mean, James did a great job putting it together himself. He taught himself all this stuff. And right now we're trying to take it in a direction that's kind of modernizing it and making it faster and more responsive. Right now we have a lot of problem on peak hours with like the group upload feature overloading the website because they're both connected to the same server. If there's a way that we can code using like an external API to upload logs, if that offloads our server load, keeps everything running fast, that's great. That's the kind of thing we're looking for with like the new people coming on. Also with the graphic design side of things, there's a few applicants that had pretty extensive graphics knowledge, even more so than my own. That's something that's really appealing if you want to maybe make it look prettier.
How do they get a hold of you?
One thing, right now it's just an email application. I tell them to kind of send me a link to their portfolio, examples of their previous work, kind of their resume almost like a job interview, but via an online email.
Yeah, well, that's how
Okay,
most
so they
tech
can reach
jobs
that
are.
from the torpars.com website, or?
Yeah, we have a blog post right now on our blogspot, and it lists all the qualifications we're looking for and how to contact me. Right now, our apps are open until Friday, so I don't know when this will be published, but we're winding down our applications. So
okay.
I start doing interviews after that.
And the idea behind these people joining our team, right, is Hayward and I, we're also fairly busy people, and we understand that Torpars, it needs to be there all the time, and we want it to be the best it is, and so we're looking to add a couple people to our team who have the passion that we have, so that we can deliver the absolute best service to everybody. Because at the end of the day, we're only two people, and we both have, I don't want to say fairly busy lives, but we have lives outside of Torpars and Star Wars. And it's how do I want to call Torpars? It's kind of like a well-loved hobby for me, as in the sense that that's the amount of time I get to devote to it every night, kind of thing. And so, if the more people we have, the better service we find we can deliver for people, and then everyone wins.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I would love to make a career out of it if I could, but I got to be realistic. It's not going to be paying all the bills and stuff, so it's more of a project.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well we wish you best of luck with it, and like I said, we'll be definitely keeping our eyes out for the latest updates as well.
Well, before they leave, I had one last question for them, and that's so in my mind, I'm like the best, right? Obviously, but I just want like this huge. I want this like star next to my name every time Rondo logs in or like posts a parse, and like everybody underneath me, and maybe like a highlight, and then everybody underneath me, I think they should receive an email telling them that I beat them. Is this possible? Like, what do I need to do for you to get this?
How much does it need to pay you?
Hey, if we have persistent guild groups down the line, you never know if maybe we'll post a latest log next to your name or something.
just tell them like Rondo just kicked your ASS. It just happened right now. Anyways, thanks for being on tonight, guys. A lot of good information.
Yeah, for sure.
And anytime that you guys want to come back and give us any sort of updates, your door's always open. The vent channel is always open. All right.
Sounds good.
No
Thanks for
problem.
having us.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for inviting us on tonight. It was nice.
Yeah, think big, but it's been our pleasure for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
It was great
thanks,
having you
guys.
guys on. Pleasure.